2025. Welcome to the Mission League preview. I'm Alden Detmer alongside Alex in, and boy, is the Mission League as exciting as ever. It's the most competitive we've seen it in our time at Harvard-Westlake, and maybe even ever, with Sierra Canyon, Harvard-Westlake, Notre Dame, all competing for that top seed. And boy, are we excited to talk about it today. First, Alex, let's look back into the past season, the season we just had, where Harvard-Westlake was pretty successful in winning that top spot in the tournament, which followed that pre-league play. They were number 3 seed going into the tournament with 2 crucial losses in Notre Dame and Sierra Canyon. Who's going to be the team to beat this year?
Yeah, we'll kind of get into my official rankings later, but I think Harvard-Westlake coming in 6-time champions in one of the most competitive leagues in the country is really impressive. So I think kind of the basketball world has them as the team to beat for sure. Obviously, as you were saying, Notre Dame and Sierra Canyon loaded as always. We've got Tyron Stokes, the #1 junior in the country, joining the league with on Sherman Oaks, Notre Dame. He comes in from prolific prep this year, so they're obviously going to be great. Sierra Canyon's got a ton of new transfers. Gavin Hightower from Windward, notably, they're loaded as well. And then top to bottom, 1 through 8, this league is really competitive, Alden. And I think there's no easy wins in the Mission League.
Yeah, 100%. I think that kind of raises the question: is the #1 team and #1 seed in the Mission League really the best team? Because last season, Sierra Canyon obviously came away with that, going 7-0 and were undefeated. But then they ended up losing in the playoffs. They lost in the Mission League tournament to Crespi with the buzzer beater from Joe Sterling. So that kind of raises the question: were they the best last year? Do you think?
Well, yeah, obviously Sierra Canyon came out strong, 7-0 in original league play, and then as you said, the loss to Crespi, and then they went in open division pool play, went 2-1, but a brutal loss to Harvard-Westlake, something around like a 40-point,
72-38.
72-38 in open division pool play, the highest level of high school basketball in California, and so clearly they kind of fell off a little bit at the end there. The wheels kind of came off, but league play will tell us a lot about these teams. Pre-league play has told us a lot about these teams, but you really find out what teams are made of in February, not December, Alden.
I have to agree. Well, before we get into our rankings, let's first look. What do we think will be the biggest game of the season? I've got 2 top contenders. #1, the January 10th game at the Intuit Dome between Notre Dame and Sierra Canyon, 2 of the top teams in the league. Obviously, it'll be exciting to see in the Intuit Dome for the first time a high school basketball game is being played in there, along with that whole showcase. So that's one of the contenders. You can tell me if I'm wrong or right, Alex. #2, January 24th, Harvard-Westlake at Notre Dame. I know the Notre Dame's fans and students and parents will be riled up as they're looking to beat Harvard-Westlake this year and take that win home as they did last year, coming into our home. And so which game do you think is going to be more exciting for you?
Yeah, the game coming up on this Friday, January 10th, between Notre Dame and Sierra Canyon is going to be incredible. It's going to cap off the entire Mission Trinity League showcase in the Intuit Dome. The first ever high school games played in this dome, as you were saying, obviously just got built. We're super excited to be on the call for Harvard-Westlake St. Francis earlier in the day at 5 o'clock. So I think that game is really going to be incredible. And I think the spectacle of that game really can't be beat. The Intuit Dome, ESPN2, it's going to be a great game. But the January 24th game, Harvard-Westlake at Notre Dame, I think that's where we're going to get the best basketball game in league play. I think, Harvard-Westlake and Notre Dame, they've obviously been playing against each other for a long time. The last 2 years, they've had a lot of close matchups. Harvard-Westlake kind of edging them out in final at the final rankings at the end of last year, but they had lost the game to Notre Dame last year in league play, but then kind of got their revenge Mission League tournament play. I think now they're still looking for revenge. Coach Sargent, Coach Rabibo. It's going to be 2 well-coached teams that know each other well. I think that's going to be the best basketball game of league play. Alden.
I'm going to agree with you. Well, let's get into our rankings. I'll start first, and we already off the bat we're differing here. I'm first in the 8th spot. Going to go with Bishop Alamany Warriors, 14-3 so far, coached by Mike Delaney. And that's not to say that they're a bad team per se. I just think, this year, maybe not their year. Last season, quite the interesting story. They're 1-6 in the Mission League, and they only had 1 win against Chaminade at home by 85-76. And so you would think, well, yeah, probably not going to go to playoffs, Mission League tournament, whatnot. But then they ended up winning they're the defending Division 3A Southern Section champions and 3A state champions. So they really brought it on further on in the playoffs. But unfortunately, they lost 7 seniors from that squad. 6 of them graduated, 1 of them transferred out. So without really that core of that squad, it's kind of hard to rebuild that effort without the chemistry and whatnot that they had last season. Obviously, they have a new commit now, or a new student, Weber State commit Bourgeois Tishaboro, who's a 6'8" forward and senior. He's actually from the Democratic Republic of Congo, went to San Gabriel in 2021, and then transferred to Bishop Alameda. It's now his second year. So he'll be stepping into a leadership role along with Paris Lassiter. And I just think they're a good enough team, but I haven't seen enough from them so far to kind of prove them to be any higher. And obviously a really competitive league, which, it's Division III and Division IIIA, obviously a little bit easier to win those games. But Mission League, one of the top leagues in the country, if not the top league in the country, it's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, for sure. In my 8th slot, Alden, I am going to have the Chaminade Eagles. Last year, they went 0-7 in league play, landing in that last spot. They came into league play 16-4 last year. It's kind of a similar story. Alden might have something different to say, as they're 17-3 right now, led by Coach Brian Cantwell. Jonas Thurman, the senior guard, has been a real standout for the team. They've been playing really good basketball, but I just feel like they did get a new transfer in who will kind of add some size to that team, but I think they're still just a little bit undersized, and I think they'll kind of be outclassed by some of these top teams in the league, and I think it'll be hard for them to kind of get momentum. Not to say they're, obviously, as you were saying about Bishop Alameda, not to say they're not a great basketball team, but I think they will end up in my 8th slot, Alden. And now, for the 7th slot, I'm going to go with number 7, Bishop Alameda. You were just talking about them in your 8th slot, but I have them up at 7, Alden, and there's a few reasons why. Obviously, as you were saying, they won the Division IIIA Southern Section Championship. They won the Division III State Championship last year. That kind of championship culture, that mentality, that carries over across the year. Even when you lose 7 players, 6 seniors, Coach Delaney is going to want to carry that championship character, that championship mentality they had last year. It's going to stay with the young guys who are on the team last year and now are kind of stepping into that leadership role. They're going to bring that to this team, and I think it'll get them a few wins in the Mission League and bring them up to 7th place. As you were saying, the transfer from the Dominican Republic of Congo to Shilabo, he's going to be a really incredible player for them, coming in from San Gabriel Valley last year. I think he's really, it's his second year with Bishop Alameda, but I think he's really going to take a step up this year and lead them to 7th place in the league, Alden.
Well, I like that, to hear that. And my 7th spot, I'll go with St. Francis, coached by Todd Wolfson. They're 13-5 so far this season, which is actually the worst record in the Mission League. Hard to believe that you can have such a good record and be the worst in the league so far. But in the 7th spot, last year they're pretty successful, 20-11 overall, 3-4 in the Mission League, had wins over Chaminade, Bishop Alameda, and Loyola. And good squad last year, but unfortunately they lost 4-star guard and LSU commit Mozzie Mosley to Monteverde Academy. He changed his mind, didn't like it after like 2 months, and decided now he's going to Prolific Prep, so that's where he'll be at one of that top teams, academies in the country. So losing that main kind of fundamental guy of your team is going to be a big loss for them. They did add freshman Luke Paluis to the team, and obviously Coach Todd Wolfson is what a guy he is, has been leading this program for like a number of years. And he has a big Twitter following, and just like it's so inspirational that I see on Twitter. But regardless, I think they have a good squad, a good coach. They don't necessarily have the size and responsible to be able to get to that next level. They'll kind of be a wild card in my book, and we'll see what happens with St. Francis in the 7th spot.
Yeah, Alden, you're just talking about St. Francis. You'll see where they kind of put my ranking, but I kind of disagree a little bit with where you put them, Alden.
Oh well. Well, for the 6th spot, I disagree with Alex once again. Chaminade is number 6. I think they're going to have a good year this year. I think they're a real wild card contender team. 17-3 so far under head coach Brian Cantwell. They've been quite successful coming into the Mission League play. Unfortunately, last season they're also 16-4 and then ended up going 0-7 in the Mission League, which is kind of the counterpoint to this whole kind of plan. But I think Jonas Thurman is the man. He's been an absolute beast, and it's his show over in Chaminade. He casually dropped 48 points against Calabasas, which is 3 points shy of the school record. He's like the second most scorer in that school history. He also had a 3-point game winner in overtime against Chalhavet. And this is just like his standout senior year. He's averaging 22 points a game, 10 rebounds a game, and just really putting the team on his back as he leads them to success. I think they can do it this year. Last season, some of the problems they had was with size, similar to St. Francis this year. But because their tallest guy last year was 6'4", but they added junior center and a 6'8" guy named Dylan Gonzalez, who will be crucial under the rim for his little bit of rim protection, some defensive measures. And I think this is the year for Chaminade. They open the season today, Wednesday, against Harvard-Westlake at home, which will be a little tough for them, but I do think they have the potential to be a big riser and take that 6th spot.
Yeah, for sure, Alden. And in my 6th slot, I'm going to go with the Loyola Cubs. They're coming in 15-3 so far in pre-league play, led by Coach Damian Powell. I think they're a really gritty team. They've got a lot of good shooters on the outside, and I think this is a team that kind of is always in the middle. It feels like they fall where they can't really hang with Harvard-Westlake and Notre Dame, but they can usually kind of handle kind of the bottom of the league. But I think this year they might struggle a little bit, lacking that athleticism and that kind of star power that some of these other teams have, Alden. And I think they'll still be able to get to that 6th slot, but for me, I feel like they're not going to be able to do enough to rise higher. They're led by a great group of players, a lot of juniors on this team who are kind of leading and scoring. They got Brandon Klein, you've got Quincy Watson, a great shooter from behind the arc, and I think this Loyola team can do a lot of damage, and I wouldn't take a game against anyone in this league lightly, but I do think that they will end up in the 6th slot in the league.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that point of they're kind of in the middle of the league, and we kind of tend to divide it based on 4 and 4, like the top 4 with Harvard-Westlake, Sierra Canyon, Notre Dame, and Crespi maybe, and then we have the bottom 4. Loyola's kind of in that mix. They can kind of a bubble team jump up and down, similar to the Premier League of going up from championship to Premier League and back down and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then so now we're going to move on to the number 5 slot, and here is where I have the St. Francis Golden Knights, Alden. You had them all the way down in your 7th slot, but I have them up in 5. They finished 5th in league play last year, going 3-4. Obviously, as you said, they lost Mozzie Mosley, an incredible player, the 4-star going to LSU, and that's going to be a big loss for this team. But I think Coach Wolfson has really instilled a mindset in this team that you can lose a player to one of the academies and you're going to be fine. They've got, as you were saying, Luke Paulus, the freshman guard. He's been a real standout for this team. He can facilitate the ball. He can shoot from a lot of different places on the court. I think this Golden Knights team has the potential to kind of knock off one of those top dogs. They're really well coached. They play with a lot of intensity every night out there on the court. And obviously, as you said, they're coming into pre-league play 13-5, which it sounds like a pretty good record, the worst of any of these league teams. But I think that'll kind of have them ready for league play. They've kind of had some bumps and bruises. They've had some games where things didn't go their way to kind of work the kinks out. And I think Coach Wolfson will have this team in a position where they're ready to compete, and I think they'll end up in the 5th slot in this Mission League, which is a pretty favorable result considering the talent that's in this league. Yeah,
I'm going to have to agree with you on that. I mean, they haven't really added anyone necessarily to that Golden Knights squad, so it's kind of hard to judge so far. They do have a good core and good team chemistry, I think, so that'll be interesting to see. For the 5th spot for me, I'm going with the Loyola Cubs. 15-3 under Damian Powell, as Alex said. They got Brandon Klein, Quincy Watson. I think this is kind of a wild card year for them. Brandon Klein is the transfer. He just joined the team. He was averaging 24 points a game at Milken, so pretty successful. Glad he kind of made the jump to a more powerful and bigger program like Loyola. So that'll be interesting for him to see, along with Quincy Watson, who's been pretty crucial, like you said, around the arc. He has that infamous basketball hoop that LA Times reporter Eric Sondheimer wrote about in his home in the Palisades that everyone on the street and in the neighborhood knows about, because he's always outside working, practicing, putting that work in to just be the best that he can be. And he kind of has the supporting cast to help him do that. So I think it'll be an interesting year for them. And I don't really know, but I think Loyola, they have potential, but I don't think they're able to break into that top spot. We'll have to see so far. They've been just okay so far in the pre-league play.
Mm-hmm. And then now we're gonna get into the top 4. We both have Harvard-Westlake, Notre Dame, Sierra Canyon, and Crespi left. Mm-hmm. We'll kind of see where our rankings fall.
So in the 4th spot, I'm going with the Sierra Canyon Trailblazers of Chatsworth. Big team that's always talked about by the national media and local media. Everyone always saying, wow, they're the best in LA, Sierra Canyon team to beat. They got invited to play against Long Island Lutheran in the UBS Arena in New York. What team gets to do that? But I don't think, they always bring in a lot of transfers. They brought in this year, they have Gavin Hightower, who transferred from Windward, and they have a good core of Chris Nwuli, Maximo Adams, and just a bunch of guys that are really high-level athletes, but I don't think they have that team chemistry and bond to kind of make a run and be at the top of this league. You kind of need that when there's very fine margins in this league of these games can be won or lost just off a couple of fouls or a three-pointer. And so I think that team chemistry and just knowing where your other players are at how kind of helping each other bond and improve is kind of necessary in this league. So I haven't really seen that from them. I know Coach Andre Chevalier is really working overtime on that. He's done a couple of team bonding things, like he said in the Mission League Media Day. He didn't really name anything specific they had done since then, but he said he is working on that. And they had their second buzzer beater loss of the year this year. The first one being against Crespi in the Mission League tournament. They just had one to Santa Barbara, 75-72 over the break. But they bounced back with 2 wins at the Memphis Hoop Fest over Bartlett and Houston of Tennessee each. And Kristen Woolley, one of those Sierra Canyon players, named the MVP of the tournament. So definitely a very high-powered squad, but I don't think they're on the level of Crespi, Harvard-Westlake, or Notre Dame.
Very interesting selection, Alden. Obviously,
Yeah.
Sierra Canyon went 7-0, were seeded first in that Mission League tournament last year. Have them in number 4 slot, kind of break up that top 3.
And I thought long and hard about that one, but in my gut, my feeling is put Sierra Canyon at 3rd. But I just don't think it's the year. I think just want to shake it up. I think something's going to happen with this Crespi team, and I think they're going to be good, Alex.
All right. Well, in my 4th slot, you just mentioned them. I do have the Crespi Celts. So coming off of last year, they made it all the way to that Mission League title game. A really incredible season for the Celts. But obviously they did lose now junior guard Joe Sterling, who's now playing here at Harvard-Westlake in Wolverine Red. And I think Sterling was a big reason why the Celts were able to have such a successful year under Coach Fisher last year. But I do think that success will still carry over. As I was kind of saying with the St. Francis Golden Knights, I think success in years past and building that championship culture, as well as what I was saying with Alamany, that can really carry over to the next year and can help propel a team to a new height. And I think with Joe Sterling leaving, that kind of gives Peyton White, the Nevada commit, the senior forward, a little more room to do what he can to do more. Last year he was kind of playing more in the post, doing more down low, but now he can kind of stretch the floor a little bit. Carter and Isaiah Barnes, the sophomore guards, are going to be huge. And I think this Crespi team could be really good. But I do not see them kind of breaking into that top 3 like it seems Alden does. I think they don't really have the star power to match up with Sierra Canyon, Notre Dame, or Harvard-Westlake this season. But I think Coach Fisher has got this program moving in the exactly right direction, Alden.
I'm just going to jump into my 3rd spot, and that is number 3, the Crespi Celts. 15-4 so far with NBA legend Derek Fisher. He played with Kobe, LeBron, played with basically everybody with that team. He was coach at LA Sparks, coach for the Knicks, and now he's here at Crespi. And so what a guy to have as your head coach. Obviously, we talk a lot about other coaches like David Rubio, Todd Wolfson, very high-level coaches, but someone with that NBA-level experience is just kind of a whole nother story. So they're set at the coaching position. They also won the Classic at Damien Gold Division. They won the Section 7 Arizona Champs in both their divisions. And so I think this is kind of the year for them. They really have a loaded squad. Obviously, no Joe Sterling, but Peyton White has really excelled in the absence of Joe Sterling, and he's turned into a beast who just slams down defenders and drives right by them, dunking. He had 3 dunks in their game and 26 points over their win last Friday against Washington Prep. And now they're on an 8-game win streak heading into that home game against Notre Dame to open up league play. I think they just have a really loaded squad that with that high-level coaching of Derek Fisher is going to be pretty influential for them. Alongside, they added Santa Monica High transfer Jaden Sue, who's a 6'6" wing and averaged 11 points a game as a junior. So they just really have the key components alongside those Barnes twins to make things happen. Now, I wouldn't have necessarily said this and put them in the 3rd spot earlier on in the season. They had a couple big losses early and just weren't as really grinding as well and just not really working as a team like you would expect. But now, 8-game win streak, and I think they can make something happen.
Well, all right, Alden. In my number 3 slot, the team you just talked about, I have the Sierra Canyon Trailblazers. They're coming into league play 13-3, as you said, coached by Andre Chevalier. But I think this team is just too loaded to not be in the top 3 of the Mission League. But I do think that the kind of team chemistry flaws and mishaps that you talked about are kind of going to keep them from that 1 and 2 slot. And furthermore, now this year is kind of different. Harvard-Westlake and Notre Dame probably have more star power than Sierra Canyon this year. We talked about Tyron Stokes entering the league and playing for Notre Dame. Obviously, you have Nick Kamenya and Joe Sterling for the Harvard-Westlake Wolverines, 2 really high-level players. And I think Sierra Canyon, while they have a lot of different good players, I don't know if it'll necessarily come together for a Mission League championship team to win this league. It's really like winning a state championship almost. It is really difficult.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Sierra Canyon Trailblazers necessarily have the legs, but I think they're just too loaded to not finish in the top 3, Alden?
Well, I think ESPN and national media would agree agree with that statement, maybe even put them higher up. But for the number 2 spot for me, I'm going with the Notre Dame Knights. You know, kind of a rival between Harvard-Westlake now has been building, as these are the top two teams, as most people have kind of decided. And I think Harvard-Westlake Notre Dame kind of pulling away from Sierra Canyon and maybe even Crespi as they've kind of established themselves. Now, Notre Dame, they have Tyron Stokes, class of 2026, number 1 junior in the country, played with AJ DeBonsta last year at Prolific Prep. He's originally from Louisville, Kentucky, and he has all this experience. And you know, he had a wrist injury, so he was out for a few months. And you might think, oh, like he wasn't able to bond with the team, like he's not really going to know how to work well with his other members. No, you're really wrong. He's scored like 20 points in like every game so far that he's been in. He's just like an absolute beast, driving to the basket and just been like slamming it down. And I think like at the Hoop Hall in Arizona, they went 2-1 and they had 1 loss to Layton Christian, which was kind of big. And they were the only California team in the round robin section to lose a game. It's Roosevelt and St. John Bosco went 3-0. But I do think they are going to be key this year to like fighting for Wolverines for that top spot. Now they did lose Mercy Miller last year, who's a big leader on that team. But I do think they have the star power, along with Matt Sargent, who's very pro transfers, and he was scouting out the Harvard-Westlake games in Arizona, and he's just like working around the clock. And I think that's his goal, to beat Harvard-Westlake this year, like they did last year at our house. So that happening at their home this year is going to be the goal, and that's going to be a tough matchup.
Yeah, for sure, Alden. In my number 2 slot now, I really thought long and hard about this one. I was really torn, but I am also going to go with the Notre Dame Knights. I mean, we've talked so much about how vital Tyron Stokes is for this team. I mean, he's an incredible player, the junior guard, but he's not the only great player in this team. You've got returning senior guard Lino Mark. He's been incredible. He was incredible last year. He's a great defender. He can do numbers against someone like Joe Sterling. They've got the sophomore guard Navarro Bowman, class of 27, the son of legendary 49ers linebacker Navarro Bowman Sr. Now, both those players were kind of missing in action a little bit at the Hoop Hall Classic, so I think this Notre Dame team will be recharged and they'll be ready to go. And I do still have them in the 2 slot, Alden, but I think this team has a real chance to knock off Harvard-Westlake and kind of break their streak of 6 straight Mission League championships. And I think this might be the year for the Notre Dame Knights. Now, I still do think that the depth of Harvard-Westlake, the cohesion of the team, led by a guy like Nick Kamenya, who's such a gritty player, such a great defender. I do still have them taking the top spot and defeating Notre Dame. But I think this Notre Dame team is really excited. They're kind of almost the underdog, which is crazy when you have the number 1 player in the junior class. They're kind of the underdog in this league. They have a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to be ready to rock for that January 24th game against the Wolverines.
Yeah, the Wolverines are going to bring it all, and that's why I think number 1 goes to none other than the Harvard-Westlake Wolverines. 18-1 so far under the guise of David Rebibo. Now, we are Harvard-Westlake students, if you couldn't tell, and maybe we do have a little bit of bias, but I do think it's hard to argue against the 2-time defending state champions. They won the trifecta last year of Mission League, Southern Section, and state. They're the 6-time Mission League champions consecutively. And it's just really hard to argue against this team who added Joe Sterling over the summer, the guy who can just shoot threes like unimaginably. And I think Nick Kamenya, the Duke commit, who's really learned under this whole Wolverines team as he's been a 4-year varsity player. He just draws double attention on defense. And so that really opens up Isaiah Carroll, Joe Sterling, Amir Jones to shoot threes or just pass it and they'll drive it into the hoop and just score like infinite points basically with that kind of strategy. And not to say Nick Kamenya can't do it with himself. He can shoot at like 3-pointers. He can do fadeaways, Euro steps, literally anything. And that's why he has 2 gold medals with USA basketball. And it was like the top 5. He was number 5 in points scored, like points per game of the whole USA basketball circuit from Stephen Curry to like U14. So I think this is just going to be the year Wolverines are going to get it done. I think maybe the best team they've ever had with Nick Kamenya and Joe Sterling. And I also think, don't forget about Baron Linekin and Dom Bento underneath the rim. They've been crucial in boxing out and playing defense. They can play kind of split time, sub in and out, and work off each other, off the center of the other team. And even if they can't really hit the free throws, if they get fouled, they're just great to have under the rim and prevent any other teams from scoring. Obviously, these games, like at the Hoop Hall Classic in Arizona, I was there against Perry and Gonzaga, 2 of the top teams in the country. Both won on 3 points for each. So going to be very close, I think, in the Mission League. Wolverines have that power. They have Dave Rabibo at the helm to lead them through it. I know he's always working on this team, and everyone's grinding in the gym constantly. So Harvard-Westlake goes number 1.
And for me as well, Alden, I have the Harvard-Westlake Wolverines also taking the number 1 spot. I mean, 6 straight Mission League championships, 2 straight Open Division state championships, Southern Section Open Division championship last year. I mean, this is now a building of champions. You know, everyone's that's kind of the expectation. The motto for this team this year is earned, not given. You know, everyone kind of expects them to be great, but they have to go out there and earn it now. And I mean, Coach Rabibo has got pretty much his whole team in here in the most of his team in here in the building since freshman year. You know, been nurturing them up. You know, from back with Brady Dunlap and Jacob Huggins when they won that state championship 2 years ago to now. I mean, so this has been a long time coming for Coach Rabibo. The program has been built from the ground up. And that really leads to a team that plays cohesively, that plays for one another, that loves one another. And I think that's kind of the difference between a lot of these teams that have such talented rosters. I think Harvard-Westlake has all the talent. You know, you've got the Duke commit, Nick Kamenya, probably a future NBA player. You've got Joe Sterling, lights out from behind the arc, along with Don Bento and Baron Lineikens under the rim, among many others on this team. And I think it's just a gritty team that will play for each other and kind of knows what it takes to win. They've been there, they've done that, and they know what they need to do. And I think they do it again, get the Mission League championship. And then I think no one isn't really they're kind of the team to beat in all of Southern California, Alden.
You know, I think offensively, Wolverines and like maybe Notre Dame, Crest Peak, Sierra Canyon, all very similar offensively. But I think the Harvard-Westlake defense is kind of what sets them apart. Rabibo has said that like they can afford for the offense to take a day off, but they cannot afford for the defense to take a day off if they want to be able to win. So I think like defensively, they're probably the best, and that would be crucial for them. Because you can win games offensively, but you can win state championships defensively.
I totally agree with you, Alden. I think something's been brewing here in Studio City, and I think this Wolverines team is ready to roll yet again. Some other top contenders outside of the league, obviously. You're going to have St. John Bosco. You're going to have Roosevelt. Those are 2 of the top teams outside of the Mission League will kind of compete with Harvard-Westlake and Notre Dame in Open Division pool play, presumably. And then on Friday, we'll get a chance to look at all of these Mission League teams, plus the Trinity League, which includes St. John Bosco at the Intuit Dome. It's going to be a really fun time. Harvard-Westlake versus St. Francis at 5. And as we were saying earlier, the capper, Sierra Canyon, Notre Dame at 8 o'clock, playing on ESPN2. That's going to be a great game, Alden.
Yeah. Well, finally, Mission League MVP. Who do we think is going to be the best player in the league this year? I'll let you go first, Alex.
Yeah, for me, you know, oftentimes we see the Mission League MVP being on the team who wins the league. But for me, this year, I am actually going to go with Tyran Stokes to win the Mission League MVP. Number 1 junior in the country, you know, coming in from prolific prep. You know, he's been playing a national schedule for years now. He knows what elite competition looks like. He knows how to handle elite competition, playing on the EYBL circuit and all of that. And I think, you know, he's just too powerful. He'll get to the rim against any opponent he wants to. I don't think it will ultimately will the Knights to a Mission League championship, but I think, you know, I personally think he is the best player in this league, and I think he'll come away with that Mission League MVP, although there are so many great contenders for it. I think he's just a little too great, Alden.
I mean, MVP, most valuable player, that can have 2 different meanings. Like, obviously, I probably agree. He's probably the best player like in the league. But does that necessarily mean he is able to carry that team to a championship and kind of lead the team and be like a cohesive leader, make sure everyone like kind of follows through and boosts up the support of everyone else? I think that's kind of the definition. Now, if the MVP wasn't chosen based off if you're able to win the championship or not, and kind of more just in general, like who's the best player in the entire league, I would probably go with someone like Jonas Thurman of Chaminade, who's just an absolute beast over there, like 22.5 points a game so far, and he's just like been putting the team on his back, like I've said. I think he's just probably one of the best players in the league, personally, but I think knowing that, I'm going to go with Nick Kamenya as my MVP. Now, Duke commit, 4-star, like top 20 in the country. I think he has the power and nous to do it all. Like I've just mentioned, he can just draw the defense to him and allows everyone else to succeed. He's a leader in the locker room and in practice, doing in the gym and doing lifts. And I just think he is able to get it done. His family is all about basketball. His dad's a coach at Los Angeles Valley College. His sister is an upcoming 8th grader who's like 6'2", in 8th grade and is going to play on the Harvard-Westlake basketball team. And I just think the whole family is about basketball. He's about basketball. He's been doing it his whole life. He wants to go to the NBA. And I think He wants to get this done, as this will be the third. There's never been a team to win the CIF State Champion Open Division Championship 3 times in a row. So I think he wants to do that, make school history, make league history, and I think Nick Menya is the man to do it.
Well, all right, Alden. I think that concludes our rankings, MVP, Game of the Year. But I think, no matter whose rankings come out better, I think it'll probably be mine. But I think
won't.
Mission League play is going to be really fun. There's a lot of star power in this league. It's 8-1, top to bottom. It's an incredible league, one of the best in the country. We've got the teams like Harvard-Westlake and Notre Dame, but, anyone in this team can beat anyone on any given night, and it all starts this week. The Intuit Dome is going to be incredible. I'm beyond excited, Alden.
I am too. Well, we thank you for joining us on our little show and podcast. We're super excited, like Alex just said. We hope you enjoy some of the HWTV commentary for some of those games. Enjoy the playoffs. We're super excited, and have a great rest of 2025. Happy New Year.